Do you remember Power Rangers Aquaforce?
The new Power Rangers team that splashed its way into PMC?
A show about underwater marine life fighting against the corruption of the surface?
If you don't worry, we'll remind you. A few months ago, Tom Cutsey did a panel at PMC, and that panel was a Create Your Own Power Ranger show, created by the guests who shouted out prompts, and together we created Power Rangers Aquaforce. But that's it. We created the bare bones of a great concept, but did nothing with it. We've been sitting on this idea and newly created world for months with plans to do a D&D session or create an audio drama. And even though Klutz, an artist friend of ours, made some concept art for the suits, we still did nothing with it. So, for 2025, we are going to change that. I plan to make a video per month about this show of ours and get some hype in the community, with your help of course. I would love for a community to grow around this idea, fan art to be drawn, lore to be written, created by us, the fans, to build something beautiful, and we have already started on my Discord. Join my Discord now to be a part of this creative process, and tag me on Twitter or Blue Sky or any app if you do anything for us. So, let me once again introduce you to the world of Aquaforce as we know it so far.
Dive in!
See, I have a watch. I hope you two have watches. Otherwise, it'd be really weird if I was the only one who did the morph right.
The world and theme overall is all underwater. Submarines was what was called out originally, aquatic wildlife added over time. Think any underwater level in a game. Think The Little Mermaid, fish and krakens, all of the above. We decided the show would be set in the lost city of Atlantis, hidden from the surface world as foretold in legends. But this isn't our Earth. Or is it? We discussed how there may be other kingdoms down in the sea, but with all different looks and cultures like in King Oja. Like how Nakospra is technologically advanced, but Shogadam and Tofu are more traditional or just old. I love this concept as their civilian forms can be designed to be completely different, and how cultures influence how the kingdom is ruled. We plan to have each of the rangers come from each of these different cities, so we can have different styles in fighting and in speech as well. And this also adds the possibility of new kingdoms maybe being discovered throughout the season also. But now, let's move on to the villains.
Now, straight away, oil tycoons and capitalism were on the forefront of the discussion, which of course makes the most sense as wildlife and marine life were pretty much the heroes, so duh. However, an interesting spin on it was that the creatures or humans above didn't know what they were doing to the marine life below, which is pretty true to our own reality. Maybe the oil production was polluting the world so badly, or they find something toxic that causes the typical human mutation into monsters. What we loved about this is that it's more Sentai focused than Power Rangers focused, and that Sentai has more to do with human villains and not exactly aliens like Power Rangers did in more recent years. Plus, Sentai can be a little bit more nuanced about it, where like the human greed is what really turned them into monsters. And I think that's what we're going with the oil tycoons too. In that the oil production changing their bodies could also represent their greed and hunger for power. It might be a little cliche, but like we said, this is more Sentai, and me personally, I think that's pretty cool. I really like those kinds of stories and villains, of course. But now that you know the concept, let's introduce Groggle Oil Company. Big boss man Grogglemon is our main villain, the head of the company who has also been polluting the oceans for years, but loves the smell of toxic waste and knows more than he lets on. And as you all know, Kezza particularly loves a Sansita slash silly Team Rocket trio, which is pretty much what Tom Katsu is, which is pretty much what this villain group is. So introduced to our audience right away was Greeble, Strumpus, and Zaytora. Yeah, they are very much Tom Katsu coded. So Greeble would be me, Marcos, the green one. Strumpus would be Thomas, the red one, and Zaytora would be Kezza, the yellow one. I wonder why. We also have some images coming in around on the screen here, which has to do with the grunts slash mooks of the season, which are designed for hunting fish, which is also pretty clever. I really like that a lot. I don't have the images on screen with me, but I'm assuming they look pretty cool. We also have some Monster of the Week designs starting to come through, and for how beautifully they are drawn, you can see the grotesque, mutated look they have, which is perfect for monsters who came from toxic sludge. It's also giving me a bit of Garo vibes, and I know Kezza and I love Garo, so that's just extra points for all of us. We even have some concepts for the trio coming in, and honestly, I can't wait to see them come to life even more, even though it's literally just us. Up next, the companions.
Every Sentai show needs companions of some sort. It kind of makes the whole vibe a bit more enjoyable and fun with these little side characters, so we discussed many different ideas at the convention. A couple of suggestions were like a swarm of shrimp that talk with a unified voice, or an octopus that does octopus things, but we eventually landed on a companion duo, which may remind you of a certain other duo as we go on, but I'll let you guess what it is before I mention what they're kind of based on. So first we have a baby tadpole. Yes, a baby tadpole, who is the cheery one of the duo. They never do any wrong, but they're a bit klutzy and over talkative. Everyone at the convention wanted them to grow throughout the season from tadpole to frog and maybe eventually become some kind of power-up, but they also have a dark past, which is that their family died due to the villain faction, and they escaped the villain faction and they're now on the run, something like that. Despite that, they're still cheery, happy, and super loving. You can decide what the dark backstory is more specifically if you want. Now for the other duo, they're a submarine character. There's kind of a lot going on with them, but they're basically complete opposite in personality to the tadpole. They're like maybe the base of operations for the team. They kind of travel around and stuff like that, location to location, but inside there's like a smaller version of him that like floats around as an extra thing the Rangers can talk to, so he can actually be involved with the characters and be the ship itself. And he's like something we were thinking, like he's decommissioned from the villain faction since he's, you know, a machine, and now he's secretly making up for the hand he had for the destruction of the local wildlife. And he's going to be super talented for no reason. He plays the clarinet, but he kind of doesn't get along with the tadpole all the time. They definitely butt heads a lot. So the duo from earlier I mentioned is they're kind of going to be like Squidward as the submarine and SpongeBob as the tadpole. I think I remember someone mentioned at PMC like we have a Squidward SpongeBob kind of deal, so that's kind of how that went down. So let me know if you think tadpole and submarine friend are fun companions. Be sure to draw or like write some other ideas for them if you have anything else you want to say. Now let's get on to the main event, the heroes of this tale. I mean tale, because at first it was Tail and now it's Tale. But in the movie Shark Tale, the title is spelled with the other one, but you know.
Straight away, pretty much, the 7 heroes of the 7 seas came up as a suggestion pretty quickly. And everyone loved the idea of 5 main members and 2 extra rangers being added in. Quite standard in the way of Power Rangers and Sentai setups, but with the 7 seas, this kinda had to be, right? The 5 members coming from the 5 main kingdoms of the sea, and 2 more somehow making their grand arrival later on with the mystery of where they came from, and that being the long-lost cities in the deep and forgotten depths of the ocean. Long lost to history due to conflicts and a dying out culture. I love this idea of a slightly villainous duo act joining the roster, and maybe they become friends or stay as foes. Can't wait to find out more, and of course, you know I love a bit of toxic yaoi as well. So let's see. The names for our heroes were chosen randomly on the day from people's suggestions, and I have to say we have done Toku proud with our water-themed rangers. So far, we have Ro, Pacifica, Khalid, Susha, Misty, Nautilus, and Tiger, as in like a tiger shark. I missed that on the day, but someone told me, and yeah, it makes sense. There has been no specific choosing of color for each name, so you guys can theorize and place them where you think, and I'll confirm that later on after listening to your suggestions. But talking about colors, here was the final selection of colors: red, pearl white, green, purple, gold/yellow, oil black, and finally rust orange with a blue accent color, as well as a beautiful iridescent shine like scales. I know I want oil black and rust orange to be like the main 2 extra ranges because of that extra detail added to the actual color. Makes it so much more intriguing. Like, why is there an extra word like oil black and rust orange? And also, just to add to this, we have pearl white, and I want Pearl White to be the leader, like Sorahime, also known as Ninja White, the first female leader in Super Sentai history, from Kakaranger. Like the names have not been connected to the colors, the genders are also not connected to them either. Just yet, as well as the animals or sea life they represent. We just have so many pieces that were collected on the day. It's kind of like a giant jigsaw with infinite possibilities of how they fit together, so please help us. We have one suggestion here, but as I said, none of this is confirmed. Please take all that we have and come up with the best placement that you think is correct. There was also chat about one of the rangers being a human, possibly coming from the surface, or some other strange origin. So we have some connection to the opposition and why we want to go up on the surface. And considering how the others will all be sea life specific to each of the kingdoms, the human coming into the world by accident or on purpose is actually really intriguing. The conflict there will be really interesting is what I think. But this also gives us a reason to why we want to go to the world above. But we'll let you come up with that lore yourselves. And finally, the last part we have to chat about is the fighting. Well, more specifically, the morph and the mecha. Morphing was interesting as so many people shouted out great ideas, but so far we have the idea of a clam or oyster shell, with each ranger having a pearl passed down by generations that goes into said shell, activating the power, if you would. I love the idea of a pearl being a generational kingdom type treasure passed on by rangers before them as an ancestral job to protect the kingdoms, an honor placed on the next successor who is worthy of their pearl. Who does it for chivalry? Who does it for selfishness? And who does it for power? Who knows? The morph so far will be dive in for the first 5 and rising for the last 2. Diving into action and rising from the deep sea. Oh, I just love it. It's just so clever. There was also discussion of a fishing rod to collect items for weapons and such, or upgrades, which I think is kind of sad, but also kind of clever. But we'll see how that goes. When I think of their main fights, I assumed it would be underwater. But now that I think about it, and as these guys said on the day, budget and costs, the CGI will just be too expensive, the fights might actually have to be on the surface as they try and get rid of the source of the toxic sludge up on the surface, as this is where monsters are coming from, but it could easily be both. And finally, the mecha. We had so many ideas for this too. By this point, everyone was painting a similar picture and was so invested, but the final form we decided on was a mecha called Neptune. For those who don't know, Neptune is the god of fresh water and sea in Roman religion, a counterpart to Poseidon. Neptune, though looking quite naked and muscular in most mosaic art, would in fact for us be designed as a deep sea diver of sorts, with arms and legs that can disconnect and reconnect, inspired and powered by different things. On the list so far we had Atlantis, a kraken, an electric eel, and a coral reef. Maybe these things could also be the creatures that the rangers help and find throughout their adventures. I don't know, could be cool. Going back to Neptune for a second, as I find this really interesting, I looked into the myths of Neptune, and he had a wife, Salacia, who ran away to preserve her grace before marrying him. He then sends a dolphin to go find her and convince her to marry him. And this works. I want to have either another mecha, Salacia, for maybe the 2 extra rangers, as they've been hidden or away from our team for a specific amount of time, and a dolphin of some sort called Dolphinius. That's all I want, really. A dolphin called Dolphinius.
For now, that's what we have.
Power
Rangers
Aqua Force.
Please be inspired and help me come up with suggestions, lore, fan art, and more for this project of ours. I want it to be our baby, to create something that could be loved by all and not just a project left to the side.
Now it's in your hands.
Let's make Power Rangers Aqua Force a reality. Kezza Henshin.
Marco Satsu,
Thomas Jujubee,
Dive in.
I feel like such a nerd saying all this. I mean, I'm really happy about it. You can tell I'm like smiling during all of this, but I feel like such a nerd.
Companions. Oh, Tomodachi.
I love Tokusatsu, man. It's so cool.
And I hope to see you next time.